Hello, Sharpies, and welcome to a super special edition of Steel Sharpens Steel with some Sharpie commentators who are joining us for the very first time as guest hosts. So I'd like to introduce Dr. Elizabeth Ashley. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Hello, Dr.
Hi,
Liz. Thank you for
everyone.
joining us.
Hi, everyone.
Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I am so happy to be here. I've been waiting forever. So I am a political scientist here in sunny California, hot California, because I'm in College of the Desert. So I'm in Palm Desert. And I am an AKA, if you can't tell. And what's so interesting too is how prophetic some of our gear was. Because if you see this right here, this is when for the Biden campaign, it's nothing but people, different pictures of AKAs up there.
And there are a lot of y'all.
And it's a White House. So we already had the presidential stuff going, Kamala for the White House back in 2020. But, anyway.
Well, one of the things that I wanted to do was we have Joy, who is at Dragon Con today, and she is getting her nerd on with the folks at Dragon Con. And then Jermaine is out and about in the world, and he is doing his thing, just getting some rest and relaxation. So because it has typically been a crimson and cream with a little bit of alpha sprinkled in, I thought I would bring in an AKA, especially a political scientist AKA, to help us make some headway and some heads and tails of our favorite candidate, Kamala Harris, and her running mate, Tim Walz. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I laid it out in the show notes. We also have another guest who is going to be joining us, who is bringing back some crimson. Dr. Daniel Tabor is going to be with us as soon as he is able. But I wanted just to ask you, Liz, in terms of what you've been seeing in the post-DNC era of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, how do you feel that she has been faring in terms of her presence at her events? We know that there's a CNN interview that's going to be happening later tonight, pretty much right after the show is over. And so how do you feel about how your Saw is handling business on the political campaign trail?
Look, I am ecstatic. What's so interesting about Kamala, though, is that it feels like she's hard to attack. Like today, they came out with an attack saying she didn't really work at McDonald's because she didn't put it on her resume. And it's like, do you put your jobs that you had
at McDonald's
in college on your resume to be a law clerk? Who puts McDonald's? No shade to McDonald's. McDonald's is a good institute. Well, it's an institution, but I did not work in fast food in my life, but I worked at the bookstore. Do I put college bookstore when I'm applying to be a professor? Absolutely not.
Well, I mean, Liz, to be fair, there are probably some very significant legal cases. I'm thinking of fries versus nuggets and quarter pounder versus cheese. So there may be some things that would have been applicable as she's trying to be a law clerk. Yes. In her graduate studies, as she's trying to get her legal degree, it probably would have been impressive to say that she was at McDonald's.
Yeah. I mean, the attacks are things that is making it very hard to attack. So she smiles. Okay. Smiling is a problem.
Well, and laughing. And JD Vance also laughs. Of course, it's nervous laughter because nobody's laughing at his jokes. But yes, continue.
And what makes it even more bizarre, the one that I think is mind-boggling to me, is claiming that she's not an American. Yeah. Based on Dred Scott. Now, I just don't even have words. Dred Scott is before the Civil War.
Right.
It was this pesky thing called the 14th Amendment and the 13th, 14th, and 15th They didn't pass all at the same time, but we did have a 14th Amendment that outlined citizenship. And they're like, well, her mom and dad aren't citizens. So she's not a citizen, but she's born in Oakland,
She's
California.
born in America. That's like birthright citizenship. It's a thing that Donald Trump's wife doesn't have, incidentally.
That part. She's still on this. She's still on a visa.
Oh, well, she's been married to him forever now. I'm sure she has a green
never
card,
applied
right?
for citizenship. Like she's never went through the citizenship process. She didn't take the test. She didn't go through the whole let's clear the thing. She's still a resident.
Well, and one of her anchor parents has already passed on to the great beyond. So I do want to give a shout out at this point. Anthony Turner has resumed his throne as being the first person who commented today. Shout out to Anthony. Thank you for being first. I want to shout out my good brother, T. Eugene Conaway, coming to us from Atlanta. And all of the rest of the Sharpies who are with us, thank you for joining us. And we know that it's only going to get better and better as the show goes on. So let's talk a little bit about some of what has happened in this bump. We know that Donald Trump, who famously lies literally every time he breathes, has been saying that we're leading in the polls. We're actually ahead. We're doing great. There is no bump. There's no bump. But she is ahead and within the statistical margin of error in all of the states. But she's only down in Georgia. But that's one point. That really doesn't count. That's basically tied. And then in all of the other states, even on Fox News, and you know that has given him a conniption because he literally came out and said, Fox polls are the worst. It's like, really? Who you got?
You know what the scary thing for them should be? What's happening to some of these governor and senators races. So like in Arizona, the Democrat is leading by 14 points.
Everybody thought Kari Lake was in a good position. Ruben Gallegos came on the DNC, and all of a sudden he's up 14 points. Kari, it's a wash, baby girl.
And the police came out, the police union in that state came out and was like, yeah, we're not endorsing her. We endorse all the other Republicans, but we're not endorsing her.
We're not endorsing her. I mean, go cry on your black daddy's shoulder. I just think it's really interesting how, well, it's not even interesting. It's just a fact of doing business with Donald Trump. The reality warp of what he is doing in terms of his just ignoring objective reality, relying on one Rasmussen poll, which is historically a bad polling service because it leans too heavily conservative. We had Frank Luntz talking about the skewed polls during the Obama administration and all this other sort of stuff. None of that has actually saved you. The only thing that turned out in your favor was in the 538 polling average, which gave Clinton an 80+ chance, an 80+ percentage of winning. That still means there's almost 20% chances that she could lose. And the Comey evidence came out a week before the election. And so it was only 80,000 votes across 3 states. And, Jill Stein was the dispositive difference in 2 of those states and ate up 2/3 to 3/4 of the difference in the other states. And so you had 2 candidates that were not well liked. One was definitely more qualified and definitely should have won, but she made some critical errors, but she has redeemed all of those errors in the way that she's come out in this campaign. And I really do give her a lot of credit for supporting Kamala Harris and for leaning in with all of the women voters, especially the white women who were looking at her as their spirit animal. So thank you, Hillary Clinton.
I pulled out a book. I have way too many books, right? So I pulled out this book because I knew you was going to mention this. And I wanted to read something to you.
Sure.
Just to show you how petty Hillary has become, because I loved her speech. I have watched it a bazillion times at the DNC. But just to give you a glimpse, Congressman Ryan Zink, and I'll be quick, soon to be Trump's Interior Secretary, brought his wife over to say hello. This was somewhat surprising, considered that in 2014, he had called me the Antichrist. Maybe he'd forgotten. because he didn't come equipped with any garlic or wooden stakes or whatever one uses to ward off the Antichrist.
Well,
But
holy
I
water.
hadn't
He's obviously not Catholic, but okay.
but I hadn't forgotten. You know, Congressman, I said, I'm not actually the Antichrist. He was taken aback and mumbled something about not having meant it. One thing I've learned over the years is how easy it is for me, how easy it is for some people to say horrible things about me when I'm not around, but how hard it is for them to look me in the eye and say it to my face. And I felt like she gave that spirit, not only at that DNC, but how she is supporting and probably giving advice to Kamala. The whole
and Kamala used that line when they were talking about the debate right after she was named as before technically the official nomination had been granted to her, but when Biden had stepped aside and it was clear that she was going to be the person to receive it, that was one of her big applause lines of say it to my face. So I'm wondering if Brother Tabor, if you can give me a thumbs up and let me know that we are clear to add you to the stage, that would be great. Perfect. So we've got Daniel Tabor here. Thank you for joining us, good brother.
Now, Mr. Tabor.
Dr. Liz, how are you?
I haven't seen you since I was like 24, 25.
It's actually probably a little longer than that, but we'll leave it right there. We'll leave it there.
I used to work on his campaign as a researcher.
I've been listening since, I think, the beginning. And let me start by a little reminiscing. My experience with the Hillary campaign was the sense that entitlement sunk the ship, and that there was no opportunity for what at that time was an energized generation of folks who were coming out of the Obama administration, looking for change, looking for opportunity. And here we are telling them, no, we've picked a candidate. You're going to roll with this candidate. This is how, what is up, Brother Turner? This is how we're going to roll. And folks said, well, I got something else I can go do. Well, go ahead and, we'll see how that works. And we ended up with 45. This time in conversation, particularly coming out of the convention, there was a sense of contriteness, a sense of understanding that she needed to project, talking about Hillary Clinton again, that she needed to project to the audience that she was supportive, that she felt a loss, that it wasn't her time then, but now was another opportunity for she and women to stand strong, shoulder to shoulder, to make Kamala be successful for everybody.
Right.
And I thought that was a nice effort on her part. But I'm like maybe wrong in this instance. I have forgiven, but I can't forget.
Right.
And that's my reality.
It's interesting. One of the highlights of the DNC for me was the remix of a song. It used the background track of P.D. Pablo's Freak-a-Leak, but the sample that they had was JD Vance saying, "I'm a never Trump guy," right? So I'm going to play this brief video because I think it's actually hilarious, but then I want to talk about what has happened in the aftermath of that. So let's just take a look at this.
So this is really who Donald Trump chose as his running mate?
Drop the beat.
I'm a never Trump guy. I'm a never Trump guy. I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him. I'm a never Trump guy. 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 I'm I'm a never Trump guy. 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 I'm a never Trump guy.
So that was that video, it goes on for a little bit longer, but it's really recycling the same people. So here's the thing that I found hilarious. In the immediate aftermath of the DNC, there were lots of videos that were comparisons between the DNC and the RNC. And in the very first videos that we saw, the I'm a Never Trump Guy part was one of the songs that was played during or in between the roll call of the states. And so you had the DJ on stage and he was doing his thing. And all of a sudden, the next time I saw that video, the song had been overdubbed, which means that JD Vance was petty enough to say, I didn't give you authorized use to use my voice in this song. He didn't notice it right away. It wasn't something that he brought up because it aired for 3 or 4 days as people were doing the comparisons. But by the time I watched it again this week, he had obviously asked for an injunction against the use of the unauthorized use of his voice, because it's just him saying, I'm a Never Trump Guy, I never liked him, like 500 times in the course of a song. And so it really highlights the point that you were making before, Liz, that they didn't do any real vetting and they didn't think of what the consequences would be of adding a person like that to the ticket who was so vocal in everything that he was saying about Donald Trump just before Donald Trump endorsed him for the office that he eventually got. This was a guy, we heard Michelle Obama talking about failing forward. This is a guy who literally has failed forward. He went to Yale, didn't have any real job prospects, went out to Silicon Valley. Peter Thiel, the billionaire, set him up with 3 different jobs, all of which he failed spectacularly at. And then he was introduced presumably by Thiel, to someone that Trump could endorse for the Senate seat. And Trump's endorsement was enough to put him over the top. It wasn't enough to put Trump in the White House, but it was enough to put him over the top. And so the one good piece of well, it's not going to be good news because he's going to lose, and so he'll still be a senator. But if he were to have won, then it would have meant that we probably wouldn't have gotten the pickup on the seat anyway, because if in the nightmare scenario of Trump actually winning, that means there's going to be enough of a red influence that we probably would lose some significant ground. So again, very important. Anthony made the point earlier, so I'm going to put it up on screen now, that we cannot rest. We've got to we may do an MJ tribute, but as we all know, we can't rest on our laurels. We have to keep working, keep campaigning, and showing out. And Liz, it looks like you want to say something about.
I do wonder, because there's a today trending, Sarah Palin is trending. And there's a lot of comparisons between a Sarah Palin and a JD Vance, because both of them were not that good picks. But what's so interesting is when Sarah Palin lost, she did not, it really kind of hurt her terribly. The run and her lack of knowledge hurt her so much that, she even ran again for Congress and she couldn't even make it. This is why we have the first Democrat native out of Alaska. And I'm wondering what will be the ramifications for him, saying if they do lose, because now we're being exposed to so much. There are more recordings of him talking about childless women.
Oh, he can't shut up about it.
It's that woman's statement. He just can't help himself.
Well, Dr. Tabor, to that point, one of the things that came out this week was in relation to Project 2025. We know that the Trump campaign is trying to distance itself from Project 2025. One of the clips that came out this week, and I love watching Midas Touch, because you talk about a network. They're at 3 million subscribers now, and they are putting out like 60 pieces of content a day. But one of the things that they did was they pulled up a clip from 2021. So this is post-endorsement by Trump, post-election as a senator. And he's literally saying, what I told Donald Trump is that as soon as he gets in the office, he needs to fire all of those mid-level bureaucrats and replace them with people who are loyal to him.
And he said that about the military.
And he wrote the foreword to the book of the architect of Project 2025. It's like, you can't escape. you're lying constantly. He goes on Fox News. A Fox commentator was trying to get him to concede that Kamala was up in the polls. And he says, well, no, actually, I think the polls indicate that she's stalling in the polls. She's flattening out. And the commentator said, oh, well, do you have some internal polling that you can maybe share with us? And he says, we're in a very good position. We're going to do what we need to do, yada, 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 in order to bring this home for the American people. And so they are lying to themselves. They're trying to put on a brave face, but it is just not working. And when you have somebody as disastrous as JD Vance on the ticket, the stark contrast between him and Tim Walz is even more apparent. Dr. Tabor, what is your opinion of how Tim Walz has been on the campaign trail since in post-DNC?
So Tim Walz, I think, has been the perfect, and I mean this in a positive way, foil for the Republican candidates, because he's given them a chance to see who they truly could be if they had 1 ounce, 1 iota, 1 centillion cent of intelligence that they used on a daily basis. You know, the expression, you tell a lie often enough, it becomes your truth.
Mm-hmm.
That's the experience that we've gotten from 45. And that now Sarah Palin and unfortunately didn't come around when that became the norm, the culture of the Republican Party. Yeah. Say whatever you want to say. It doesn't have to be factual. Say it often, say it loud, say it everywhere, and never deny it. And people will begin to believe it. And unfortunately, there are mega standards that suggest that is the way to be successful. That is the level of success. Can you get people to believe your lie? Tim Walz has basically said, well, let's talk about the truth. Let's talk about what I've done. Let's talk about, compare that to what you've done. But more importantly, let's compare it to the American values that folks feel in their own families, in their own communities are important. And every attempt by Vance and or 45 to denigrate whether Kamala or Walz bumps into a question of truth, a question of moral validity, a question of how many people really going to believe it. And I'm beginning to sense that in the broadest spectrum, the American people are beginning to see this snide, let me not call names, but these gentlemen who are purporting to be representatives of people as truly self-interested and not people interested, not interested in the country, but interested in their own progression, their own reality, which is a very deep, dark non-reality for the rest of all of us. And that's the trouble we run into, is that there's still a great many Make America Again Great Again folk who believe that fallacy can come true.
But I think that Walz has like this, but Walz is a teacher, that the notion is most people love their teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a teacher that they love, and most men and women too love their coach. Like calling someone coach is an endearing thing. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to attack Walz because you feel like you're attacking someone that's really kind of personal, because teachers is something that people have a strong affinity to. That you can't say he's rich because teachers aren't rich. You can't say that he's rolling the bucks because coaches get paid less than teachers. Mm-hmm. So it's an endearing thing where you can't say he's sitting high on the hill and he's this terrible liberal. Like you can say about Kamala, right? You do, because Kamala is, over there in Oakland versus this dude is middle of the road. You feel like he has a Toyota Camry. Like, I mean, just not saying he does, but that's the feeling.
But I think the thing too is that when you're a teacher, you're used to speaking to people and connecting with people legitimately. And when you consider the overall, and I'm not trying to be elitist or whatever, but when you consider the average I won't say intelligence, but the average comprehension of America's voters, you're really talking about a high school level. And so this is a guy who taught high school students. He taught high school boys, mostly white high school boys. And so he knows how to say it in a no nonsense way that really connects with people in a way that JD Vance, who was in tech bro, venture capitalist, money world, it just doesn't seem authentic. And people talk about the political intelligence of Bill Clinton or the political intelligence of Barack Obama. And not to say that either of them are inauthentic, but that sense of calculation does not exist in Tim Walz.
Right.
He is the most authentic, like actually authentic, folksy politician I have seen since I've been alive.
Yeah.
And that was on display when he was at the International Association of Firefighters Union. Again, he is in a union. He was in a teachers union. And so he's using the lingo and it comes naturally to him. He's not using a teleprompter. He's saying our brothers and sisters. He's talking about his mother trying to pay her bills with a Social Security check. Like if you're a billionaire, you're not worried about a Social Security check, but my mom is. They're talking about cutting the Affordable Care Act, but that's what gave us no pre-existing conditions. That's what
when
gave
he said
us
that line. But Tom, when he said that line, we feeding children.
Listen, I mean, and then JD Vance goes to that same crowd today and got booed. They could barely let him speak because he said Donald Trump and I are the most pro-labor Republican ticket in the history of our country, and they just start booing because what are you saying? If you have to qualify it, Joe Biden marched on picket lines. Kamala Harris went down to support them, stood with them, and you're saying you're the most pro-labor Republican ticket? Okay. I don't know what there is to say about that. I don't know if that's actually something to hang your hat on. Clearly, it's something that he thinks is going to work, but it didn't work for him. You're nodding your head, Daniel. What do you have to say about Tim Walz and his authenticity?
Well, I think you captured it when you said folksy. Was what I was looking for, because he not just a coach, but a coach of football. I would argue with some that football is not America's pastime, but we won't go there. But when you talk about a teacher, a coach who is a family man, a father, a husband at the same time, so he's learned to divide his attention to the needs of and value the needs of a variety of individuals at the same time that he took on the responsibility of seeking elective office and representing a broader constituency. As you said, he's a member of a union, but he was an activist in the union representing teachers. So he can speak to not just the needs of educators, but represent the picture as a member of the large family of union members who struggle with low wages, who struggle with healthcare issues, who struggle with trying to have and maintain a quality of life. He's real in that respect. He, from the standpoint of coming from a rural community, a farming community, and having to be out there 5 a.m., 4 a.m. in the morning, get it done, go to work to teach in the classroom, hang out with the football players at practice, meet them in their community, and it wasn't just their academic needs he was addressing, but their personal growth needs as well as young men. So he is all of those things. And a person that says, let me support this woman who is qualified, who is educated, who is all of those things that we aspire to be when we send our children off to school, who's taken not advantage of, but has used the opportunities that she's had to serve. And I think that's the hook and crux of it, is that they are both servants of people. And that's different. The Republican candidates can't hang their hat on serving anyone but themselves.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Liz.
I was going to say there's a few things, like the fact that, his wife, to me, is the same when she's chanting with football. That is so relatable, and that is exactly. But one of the things that people love the most about Jill Biden is that she's a college professor, not at the elite ones, but she
Community
stayed
college.
at the community college.
Yes.
And she was instrumental in passing more aid for community colleges,
Yes.
increasing the Pell Grants, creating another grant that's not based on income. She did all of this for the community college. Teachers I've been seeing are extremely excited
Mm-hmm.
that they're going to have an educator this close to the White House. Like
Yes.
the
Right.
fact that they're going to have somebody who's represented. I mean, this may seem small, but there used to be one of the things that Trump took away was you used to be able to get a tax credit based on buying supplies for your school. You
Mm.
can't get that
Mhm.
anymore as a teacher.
Mhm.
And so I'm sure that's something that is definitely going to come back. And it was only like $500. I mean, it wasn't much, but it was something. And we
That's a
couldn't.
lot.
I know, but I'm saying like that could even go higher to like 1,000. I'm
That's
just,
right.
it's just the concept of that I think people are really excited. But one of the things that he's been attacked on is his son, and that's been blowing up in the face. People lost their job.
Oh, absolutely. And it's interesting that you bring up the issue of the teachers union because Dr. Becky Pringle, who's the president of the National Educators Association, was a featured speaker at the DNC. And teachers are everywhere. Teachers are everywhere. And they're not going to try to proselytize. They're not going to try to promote a candidate per se. But when a student comes to ask a trusted teacher their opinion out of the classroom, the teacher has a lot of influence. And one of the, since you started on families, I think this is an important time to bring up. Melania is nowhere to be found. You looked at that DNC and everybody, Kamala with her husband, her two stepchildren, Tim Walz
And the mama.
his two, right? The Obamas, her nieces, everybody. It was a whole family fest up there, and everybody was smiling and laughing and carrying on. No Melania, her auntie, that sister of hers, who's fine as hell. All of those people were on stage, and it was just a laugh riot. No Melania, no Barron. And I'm not going to get into it, but let's be clear. Every other presidential child, their moves were scrutinized. Those Bush girls, when they were caught drinking, it was front page news. When Chelsea had a date or whatever, when Malia went to college and was caught smoking and was dating that non-black guy, all of that was in the news. Barron has graduated from high school and college has started. Well, that's the question though. Where is he? Where is he? Why has there not been any report on the Republican candidate for president's son where he's going to school? I'm going to leave that to the side. I'm going to leave it alone.
I want to jump back to the teacher example Liz was making of the tax benefit and turn that into something else. Having a teacher that close and understanding the benefit of being able to legislate to support the working class is unique in the White House from that experience, from your own experience. And so what he has done, what Tim has done, is elevate the opportunity not to talk about what those middle class communities need or what the middle class community, but what I needed as a member of the middle class. That is the concept. So when you talk about the lifting it up to $1,000 at the federal level, that I hate to pull this out of the past, but it works. That trickle down effect will be legislators in the state level saying, "Oh, we should do this too. We should add it to the state."
Yeah, income tax. That's right.
So that works to the benefit of all people, right?
And it's easy. It's easy, and it's low dollar figures, so nobody's going to think, "Oh, okay, $500 times a million teachers or $1,000 times a million teachers. Ooh, that's a whole lot of money. It just makes sense. If a teacher's buying supplies, you should be able to write that off. And it just makes sense.
Yeah. Let me give you another trigger that he pulled that folks really weren't paying attention to. He was the first to say, not all jobs need a college education.
Yeah.
So in his state,
trade programs,
let us identify the skill levels that are needed for employment and not just require a college education because that's what we traditionally do. Let us say these skills are what is required and make you eligible. And now, can you imagine that at the federal level saying the president, the White House vice president saying a college education is not needed to be successful and to achieve the status of life in the middle class. It's good, it's important, but those of you who've not aspired to college but have learned skills that are of value, you are as important as the other guy. So let's move this needle forward in industry and let's think about where we're headed as a country with technology and the adaptation of skills that are supported by the fact that this is what industry needs. They don't need more PhDs and EDs. Let me put a question mark there as a conversation, not to say that that's fact, but what we need is people to value the skills that people come with or the knowledge that they have to learn new skills, the ability they have to learn new skills as industry, as government, as the economy moves forward, and stop talking about the globalization. Let's teach the globalization. That is a conversation where Kamala has talked about her experience working with foreign leaders. Now we can talk about shared economies in the real sense because we can bring a workforce to that effort. So it's exciting to see the potential that's there just through the campaign and to see how people are beginning to understand there is a role and a place for people.
I want to say one quick thing. Charter schools, right? So I'm old enough to remember when charter schools exploded, especially under Bush, and how they imploded.
Vouchers.
And I know charter schools are still here, but they still implode. Give them 5 years. That's my rule. 5 years, let's see how they hang on. And having someone like him this close to the White House is amazing to bring back public schools.
Yes.
Instead of taking away our resources and putting it in to these charter schools that implode ever so often. We in California, y'all remember when the charter school system, the biggest one, Cox he was running for governor out here, imploded, didn't tell kids that they were going to school all up and down the state. They walked and the doors were locked. No notice. And it was millions of kids now struggling to find a school. Where they go? Back to public school.
Yep.
So I can imagine what can happen here.
Well, and we kind of hit on a theme of education and the importance of education, which happens to be a big theme, especially given Walz's presence. But one of the things that strikes me, because I look for interconnection within a whole lot of things, and it strikes me that there is a show on television that has lionized teachers and elevated teachers. Abbott Elementary has turned down home, inner city, just, salt of the earth teachers into superstars. And so you've got this whole halo effect of Abbott Elementary and Quinta Brunson and Cheryl Lee Ralph, who I've had the pleasure of working with. And you've turned it into something where people are now looking at teachers, especially public school teachers. It's a mixed group. You've got an LGBTQ guy on there. You've got a white Italian, no nonsense woman on there. You have the funniest principal ever to be on television in history with Ava. And you've got Quinta, and you've got, I keep calling him Everybody Hates Chris, but that guy with their, and they're all.
And the janitor.
And even the janitor. Everything about that show is saying these are the people who are helping they're helping your children. And so it means a lot more when you try to attack somebody like that. It's a bad calculation. I'm going to say one thing before we get into the next segment, because we do have to talk about how we can communicate some of these messages to young people. And Plies came out with 2 videos this week that I think that we're going to show. But when we talk about family and the authenticity of the candidates, one of the things that happened almost immediately after JD Vance was named was that the right, the far right, basically the white supremacist, Nazi adjacent white, started attacking his wife because she's Hindu, she's Indian, and she's Hindu, because every Indian person is not automatically Hindu. There's a huge Muslim population as well, but Hindu and raising their children as Hindu. That man has not come out and condemned the people who are attacking his wife. And it's the same sort of thing that Ted Cruz is facing, because Trump attacked Ted Cruz's wife and he didn't defend his wife. And now he's in the fight of his life against Colin Allred, who, 3, 4, 5 months ago, Colin was kind of like he's a great guy. He's a football guy, played for Baylor and played for a team in Texas. And that means a lot. He's a big dude. And one of the things he came out this week talking about January 6th that put the screws to Ted Cruz, or I should say Rafael Eduardo Cruz of Canada, is that when the January 6th stuff was going on, he literally said, I'm a big dude. And so people naturally kind of turned to me. So I pulled off my jacket and I went to the door, ready to bout that action, as the young kids say. Ted Cruz hid in the utility closet. And it's like, he's got a point. People don't like cowards.
Especially in Texas.
Off camera for a
Especially
second.
in Texas.
Especially in Texas. You don't want that. And so it's really a striking opportunity. I must admit, Colin is hitting me like 5 times a day. I'm already a recurring subscriber, recurring donor to him. But it's like, hey, Tom, can you just do this? And I'm like, bro, like, for real, bro. Like, I'm already giving to you. I need you to quit. But let's take a look at, it looks like Liz is trying to come back. I don't know if now she's back. All right. So let's take a look at something that could impact the youth vote in a meaningful way. And I've got a couple of different videos to show. One that I shared with you, Daniel. But let's just get Plies on screen right now to tell some of his truth.
It's real quick. But to everybody who, especially the ones who look like me, and the men who look like me, who quick to, if Kamala want my vote, she need to explain herself to me what she gonna do for the black people. Listen, stop asking a motherfucking black woman to explain themselves to you, or explain themselves to y'all. If y'all ain't willing to ask a motherfucking white man, to motherfucking explain himself. Y'all cool with the white man not explaining his motherfucking self to you. Oh, the motherfucking black, she need to explain herself to me what she gonna do for the black community. She want my vote, she need to explain herself. You ain't motherfucking asking the white man to explain his motherfucking self. You too motherfucking scared to ask him. Motherfucking somebody need to explain something to y'all. Well, she been in the office already 3.5 years. Why she ain't do all the things she said she was gonna do? Cause she ain't the motherfucking president, that's why. When you go to the motherfucking McDonald's, that lady that's the motherfucking manager, she don't get to do what the fuck she wanna do. She might can give you some motherfucking fries, but that's about it. Some free motherfucking fries, that's about all she can motherfucking do. But she can't change the price of that motherfucking $quarter up there. Or that motherfucking Big Mike. That ain't that motherfucking lady White House. She just like the motherfucking man. You motherfucking fall in line. Now, if you can get some motherfucking free fries out every now and again, you get some motherfucking free fries out. But y'all motherfucking know this. Most of y'all. But y'all just want something to motherfucking say. Now, if she was the motherfucking president and didn't do something, then that's a whole different motherfucking ball game. And the same motherfucker who the motherfucking black woman need to explain that. Y'all the same motherfucker when Barack was running. He wasn't motherfucking black enough for you neither. And a lot of y'all with y'all.
So, apologies to those who had children watching the show. That was a Deadpool level of F-bombs that Plies dropped. But it was true what he was saying. And shout out to all my Georgia viewers who literally understood when he said Big Mike instead of Big Mac. Just like his brothers to me. You got that Georgia accent on tilt. This is kind of what we're talking about in terms of things that can communicate directly with young folks. You need a voice like Plies to counter the foolishness of a sexy red. One of the things that I was talking about on a podcast with Dr. Tabor just the other day was the notion that some people who are younger than us, so let's say Gen Zs and young voters who are coming up now for the first time, perhaps in this administration, is that, you know, Trump checks. Sexy Red said the Trump checks. They gave us this check, and so why wouldn't we support him? So we're going to introduce a section today, a segment today that I call Tom's TikTok for Teens. So we're going to do this real brief and real quick. You can clock me, Liz, because I don't want to go more than 30 seconds on any one of these things.
Okay.
So, part one, Trump did not give you those checks. The Democratic Congress gave you those checks, and Trump actually held up those checks. Some of them had already been printed and were ready to be distributed. He held them up so that his signature could appear on it, precisely because he wanted you to believe that he was giving you this money. He didn't give you that money. No president has the ability to give you that money directly. That's part one. Part two, it was at most $1,700, and $500 of that was minors, and $1,200 was for grownups. It's been 4 years, people. 4 years and a half. That's 75 cents a day. That's less than the kids that when we used to send money to Africa used to get. 75 cents a day, and you're going to ride for this fool? That's the end of segment one. How's my time on that, Liz?
It was about a minute.
Okay. We're going to have to put it in two pieces. Okay. Start the clock again. Yes, sir.
So as when you say held up, you should probably say stopped you from getting it. So that the held up is not he held it up.
And you know what? And he also gave you a letter. Like he held it up for a letter. Like, because I didn't get a paper check. I got a letter.
Yeah.
It
Right.
went direct deposit
Yeah, it was
into
direct
my
deposit.
account.
Yeah. So
And you held up my direct deposit for a letter?
for a letter. So here we go. Segment two. So people are talking about how they got this money from Trump, and Dr. Tabor's daughter actually said, you know, some of these people used it to pay down their student loans. Guess what? Biden didn't write you a check because Biden just negated your student loans. So you got $1,700 on this side, or you have $170,000 on the other side. Dr. Liz has been on this show telling us how much of her debt was canceled. How much was it, Liz?
$1.4 million.
So that's big. That's big money that Biden did for you. And the Trump appointed Supreme Court is trying to shut down that repayment program. So that's another thing that Trump did for you. If you have student loans and you haven't gotten that relief, that's because his Supreme Court has denied that money for you. That's part two. What was my time on that one, Liz?
That was a little shorter.
Okay,
But
good.
to add
All right.
to that,
Yeah,
the
go
fact
ahead.
that you didn't, this is what the Republicans, and this is diabolical. They are stopping the part where they get to reduce your payment plan based on your income. So the Republicans are went to court to stop that program.
Yep.
So currently people are on forbearance. They did an automatic forbearance so that you won't have to pay until they figure this all out in the courts. And then today is when Congress, what you said, Tom, is when the Supreme Court stopped the new program from coming. And Biden is still going back to the drawing board to figure out how to get people's loans forgiven. How so you can afford, do you know my student loan payment would have been $16,000 a month? And my student loan payment is now $4.38 because I have $16,000 left. $4.38, and I have 30 payments of $4.38 left.
I mean, you could just write like one check, right? I mean,
I did already, but they don't count it all.
Right. Okay. So last one. This is going to be my last one. People talk. Start that clock again.
Okay.
People talk about Donald Trump and that he's such a successful businessman, and it's about that businessman. He's not a businessman. He's a business scam. He has bankrupted 3 casinos. Casinos are money mills. There's no way to lose money in a casino if you manage it correctly. And yet he's bankrupted 3. Trump Steaks, Trump Vodka, Trump University, scam. And he owes $500 million in disgorgement to the state of New York. He's currently trying to appeal it, but he had to write a $175 million bond to secure it because he didn't have enough cash to put the whole thing in a bond. So they cut him a break. He also owes $100 million to E. Jean Carroll for sexual assault and defamation. This is not a guy who knows how to run business. And if you Google his financial statements, the disclosures that he had to make, he's not really making any income anymore. Everything is old because he has failed. He got $400 million from his daddy. He pissed it away, has burned through it. He would have had more money if he had put it in a savings account after he got that money. And that's the end of Tom's TikTok for Teens this week. And I hope that once we get those on our TikTok, we can point them to young folks and they can use the information to counter the narratives that, you know, Lil crazy sexy red is trying to put out there.
Tom, you asked a question. Where's Melania? Well, she's coming out with the book. And her book is $99, just as much as, of course.
I know you lying. I know you are lying.
Donald Trump has a book coming out that's $99. If you want their signatures, it's $249. Just like his fake cards of $99 that you need to buy, 14 of them in order to get a piece of his
you know he ain't cut that suit up.
Come on.
a piece of his suit from the debate. These people are ridiculous. And I wanted to say something. I wanted to direct this comment to both of you because you all both work on campaigns. Of course, as you know, Danny ran for office multiple times. I think the biggest takeaway is not about the polls, it's how much money they're raising.
Oh, yes.
So it's $500 million in a month for Kamala versus in that same period, the Republicans have not even raised $200 million.
It's a lot. And if you don't read those tea leaves, that's the thing. There are conservatives, even if they're not loud. Conservatives know that money talks. And when you don't have the money coming in, they know that means your ad purchases aren't going. They are desperate. He has to spend money in North Carolina. He didn't have to spend money in North Carolina in 2016 and 2020. But now North Carolina, she actually has an edge. And that crazy person they're running for governor of North Carolina is only going to make it easier. People are not going for it. And if we are able to think about it this way, North Carolina being in play opens avenues of opportunity for Kamala to get to 270. If Florida or Texas flips, Trump has nothing. There's nothing for him. So
well, you know what's on the ballot in Florida?
Exactly. Abortion and legalized weed. Let's be clear. Rec weed is on the ballot too. And I'm not saying that that's going to be the dispositive thing, but again, you got rec weed for young voters, and you have abortion rights for the women. And Trump thinks that these women are he keeps saying, I've got suburban women because they want to be safe. First of all, they're not safe. Second of all, there's a woman running, and you can't beat that.
And you're a pariah on women anyway, so it's not like you were convicted for helping her across the street. Now,
exactly.
So abortion's on the ballot in Montana, the state of Montana.
Right.
Yes.
So there are lots of things that could help John Tester. So I mean, there's a lot of things that are really interesting. The tailwinds in this political race are really interesting, and I know that we're coming in on an hour. And go ahead, Doc. Go ahead, Doc.
You commented a second ago about the money being raised, and what makes sense for me is that conservative businessmen have decided that they no longer want to waste their money in a race, not because they can't win it, but because the money they've been giving won't be used for the campaign or the candidate. It'll be used to pay the legal bills. And they have decided they're not bailing out his legal problem any longer.
No, there's too many.
That's why you need to go buy his shoes for $299.
Them shoes don't exist. Them shoes are the NFTs. I don't know why we sitting here. We've already talked about it on the show. You'd be lucky. You'll get your big baller brand shoes before you get them damn ugly ass shoes. You try to pretend like you sold them. You've got to disclose on your financial disclosures how much you have made. And so them shoes ain't selling like hotcakes the way they want.
Plan is up.
The phlegm, it is the phlegmiest and flimsiest of flams. Now, I want to play a segment because a lot of people have said,
You know, he's selling water coolers for $2.49.
Come on now.
water coolers.
Water coolers for you
For
to
what?
take to his, so to put beer in. $249.
Oh, I knew he was selling shot glasses.
Water coolers for $2.49.
Híjole. So a lot of people, another big myth that was brought out, and this is something that DL Hughley addressed in his DNC speech. Shout out to DL, Jack and Jill, Dad, in our chapter. So I just want to throw something on the block about this, because this is from an interview that was broadcast by C-SPAN with Tavis Smiley and the State of the Black Union. And this is Kamala Harris well before she was a vice presidential nominee anyway. But let's take a look at this real quick.
The criminal justice system is not working for the African American community. I can tell you as the chief law enforcement officer for a major city in this country that it is not working. We see that in the statistics that you've outlined. 2 million people are in the prison system in this country. Over 40% are African American, in spite of the fact that we only constitute 13% of the general population. It's not working. It's not working when we recognize that African American men, the leading cause of their death is homicide. We are overly represented both as victims and as defendants and as witnesses. Our communities suffer because our babies hear the gunfire every night, so the 7-year-old has post-traumatic stress disorder and cannot go to school the next day and learn. The criminal justice system is not working for us. What I think we have failed to do as a community, however, is own this issue of law enforcement. We talk about these statistics in the context always of it is unfair, it's morally incorrect. Maybe we have learned that from the church. It is morally incorrect. But nobody cares about that. You can look at Katrina. Nobody cares about the fact that we've got a bunch of young black and brown men in prison. That argument is not working. What I suggest we do as African Americans is own this issue in law enforcement and then define it in the way that works for us. Because it is a myth to say that African Americans don't want law enforcement. We do. We want our grandmothers to be able to walk to church and be safe. We want our babies to be able to walk to the park and be safe. What we don't want is racial profiling. What we don't want is excessive force.
That's right.
What we don't want is to have our civil liberties and civil rights be stripped. But we do want law enforcement. So let's define it in the way that works for us by saying, I want community policing. I want a police department that works in my neighborhood and in my community that reflects the mores and the culture and respects my grandmother, again, when they walk in to talk to her. I want a system of accountability in the criminal justice system that says law enforcement needs to own crime prevention as much as it talks about long sentences. Because nationally, only 18% of serious crime results in an arrest. So if I, as law enforcement, with my responsibility to keep you safe, only talk about keeping you safe by sending people to prison for a long time, I'm necessarily going to fall short because the vast majority of that crime's not even hitting my system. So if I'm going to...
So, again, we've played that clip, but I just wanted to point out, the right is really trying to pretend like this sister isn't sharp as hell. She was not reading off a teleprompter, and everybody on that panel, it was a bunch of black people. Black people like talking. I know I do. All of them were church pew silent. And when she started hitting us, African American, black people, our concerns, our grandmothers going to church, our babies having PTSD, that was 2015 when she was still the district attorney in San Francisco. This is a woman who has embraced her blackness and who has been advocating for black people her entire career. Don't let it get twisted. Don't believe foolishness and lies just because somebody repeats it in your face. This is a woman who is going to tear Donald Trump to pieces in that debate, because as a prosecutor, you have to think on your feet. He's given all of the lies in the past 8 years and before. He was starting lies with Barack Obama. So she's got her clip, no offense, her clip loaded, and she's ready to come out John Wick style and blast him to shreds. So I can't wait. I'm so glad that this interview is going to happen tonight, that finally they won't be able to comment, because I'm sure she is going to do as well in this interview as she has been on the stump. She is a prepared woman. She is prepared to take on this mantle. She has been vice president of this country. She has been a senator for this country. And to the point, she is a savage prosecutor. And I want to thank Liz for sending me this clip because, again,
Can I say I was there?
Oh, okay.
In the room when she did that one.
Oh,
because
okay.
it was the last State of the Union address, the State of the Black Union, because this was right when Barack Obama became president.
Right. So, so Liz was there, and you can speak to the fact of how the audience responded to what she was saying, right? Am I wrong? Am I crazy?
She was on the same thing with Michael Eric Dyson, which I still think should be a speaker at the DNC, but that's neither here nor there.
Well, so let's take a look at how she addressed one of the current sitting Supreme Court nominees who promised up and down that he was going to abide by stare decisis in terms of Roe v. Wade, and of course was one of the deciding votes that overturned Roe v. Wade. But let's just take a look at how savage she can really be.
Have you ever discussed Special Counsel Mueller or his investigation with anyone?
Could you repeat that question?
Has the president or anyone at the White House ever asked or suggested that you open an investigation of anyone? Yes or no, please, sir? Seems you'd remember something like that.
I don't know.
Please answer the question.
Senator, I think I've answered the question.
No, you've not.
I'm not able to be rushed this fast. It makes me nervous.
Can you think of any laws that give government the power to make decisions about the male body?
I'm not thinking of any right now. Never mind.
Let's move on.
Okay. So
Love this so much.
This is the woman that we're dealing with. She has demonstrated her skills. Trump has nothing for it. One of the things that was a sticking point on the two parties agreeing to the debate is that Kamala Harris's team really wanted the mics to stay open. In the Joe Biden debate, based on Trump's past behavior. Now, this is not something that happens a lot. It hasn't always been the case that mics were muted. But because of the way Trump behaved against Clinton and Trump behaved against Biden, they actually instituted this as a guardrail to prevent him from his antics. And they're fine with it. Trump's people are happy to have it because Kamala Harris knows when she starts getting in that ass, he's going to want to strike back. And so what we're going to see instead of, it's possible that some of his jabs will be picked up on her mic. And we're certainly going to be treated to no shortage of clips of him gesticulating and frowning and frustrating and turning his head and dropping his head and doing all the sorts of things that he can't help himself from doing when that debate actually comes to life. But between her takedown of Trump and between Walz is going to eviscerate JD Vance, because one thing I know is that they're trying the swift boat thing with Vance never carried a weapon into war. He owned that, and there are no other veterans besides JD Vance stepping up in ads saying that Walz was a whatever. No, it's different. When Kerry was swift boated, he got a Purple Heart, and it was, or 2 Purple Hearts. But the injuries were kind of Trump ear injuries. That was one of the things that played against him. And you had people in his unit saying, we thought it was bullshit that he got a Purple Heart. That hurt. Nobody's standing up from JD Walz's unit and saying he was a traitor or he abandoned us. So it's just JD Vance saying it. And, the people who are inclined to listen and believe, he's saying that in friendly audiences. And so they're giving him an applause. It's not penetrating to the rest of the voting population. Tim Walz is too honorable and too likable a guy for those things to land. So Before we close the show, I want to give each of you an opportunity to give me your takeaways and your estimations. What are you looking for in tonight's interview with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz with CNN's Dana Bash? Dr. Tabor?
I'll start by saying I'm looking for the vice president to be presidential, to establish what she will accept him saying, and to establish how she will demonstrate not just her professionalism, but her, and this is going to be difficult for the audience to truly understand, but that Black women don't have to take no mess when she knows she's better than. And so what we're going to find out tonight is how he can crumble in the face of the strength of this Black woman as she politely, respectfully articulates a position on behalf of the people she served all her life and in defense of the people she served all her life. And that defense is going to be to, as you said earlier, to eviscerate his comments and to recognize his shenanigans and check him all evening long.
Liz?
You know, it's interesting. You know what's interesting is one of the things that even Clinton had a problem with is that she came off too combative. And what is interesting about Kamala is that she's projected herself and positioned herself as a fighter already, as a prosecutor. So her being combative is not going to be negative because this is what is expected. And the thing that I'm loving, actually, so I mean, I think this is going to be a good interview. And it's going to be policy based because people are still clearly didn't listen to any of her speech. They clearly didn't go to the website to download the DNC, the DNC's publication so that they can see what the policy for this is so clearly. But anyway, it is her team. Her media has been definitely ran by Gen Z because it has been hilarious. And so I think we're going to get more bites from them. I look forward to, and even for the debate, I'm looking forward to the post ads that they're going to
yes.
Because even before the debate, they did a chicken.
Yeah.
Chicken to get him to sign on to the debate. Oh, you chicken? I mean, clearly they're not doing the whole we're going high. We have gone to the gutter, and everyone loves the gutter at this point. So Gen Z is loving it, and I think that just looking at some of these little bites have been really fun.
Yeah. He has tried to label her with a bunch of different things. Crazy Kamala, kooky Kamala. Now it's Comrade Kamala, trying to tie her to her father that he's labeling a Marxist when actually her mother raised her for most of her life. But what he really needs to embrace is that she's clapback Kamala. So you can come on ahead and you can try it, but right. she's got your number, baby boy. She is not afraid of you, and unlike Hillary. This is one thing that actually plays, I think, to a strength of perception in Black women. Most people have been groomed through media portrayals and through, Jack Hay and through a whole Florence on the Jeffersons. They expect Black women to get a little neck twist and to come back on your ass if they get disrespected. She's not going to give a neck twist per se, but she's already demonstrated with the, excuse me, I'm speaking.
Say it to my face.
Say it to my face. And if you want Donald Trump to win, keep talking, but I'm talking.
Right.
So it's not going to be nice for him. As we close the show, I want to thank all of the Sharpies who were lively in the comment section, especially Gregory McFadden, thank you for the many contributions that you had. Sadita, you came in late. We love you as always. Shay Johnson, Anthony Turner holding it down for the whole show. Thank you so much for being a part of the Steel Sharp Steel family. We're going to have our lineup back next week, but also we're going to be looking forward to bringing in more guests and pulling in other folks to contribute to the contribution. I want to thank you, Dr. Elizabeth Ashley, and thank you, Dr. Daniel K. Tabor. I don't have a doctor in front of my name. I'm feeling kind of jealous right now, but I thank you. You guys,
and I hope next week you go over the grammar lesson that happened in the new indictments on Donald Trump.
Oh, well, okay. We also didn't get to talk about Arlington National Cemetery. I want to do, I want to close that real quick because that was a major scandal. Basically, Trump opportunistically reached out to some of the families whose family members were killed in the withdrawal from Afghanistan. There were 13 deaths that happened in the withdrawal from Afghanistan. It was the anniversary. And so he set it up with them that he would do some filming at a wreath-laying ceremony in Arlington National Cemetery. The Army has strict guidelines that you can't film and use those sorts of things for political purposes. You want to take pictures as you're laying down a wreath, that's fine. But to bring and to politicize it is against their guidelines, explicit guidelines. And so when Trump comes in with multiple cameras, they didn't even do it subtly. It wasn't even just like iPhones. They had real cameras there, multiple angles. And even though JD Vance says it's not like we were filming a campaign commercial, the Trump campaign already put out a campaign ad.
I have a question for you. Have you all gone to a cemetery and ever did thumbs up at a cemetery?
Oh, wait. Thank you for reminding me, because I actually pulled a graphic specifically for this. This is an illustration of how crass Donald Trump was with his Arlington visit. So this is the cast of
come on, really?
The Flash. This is what he did. You've got these dead soldiers, and here's Trump throwing up the deuces because it's so opportunistic and so disgusting that he would do that. The other thing that we didn't get to touch on, so I'm going to throw it up in the last waning seconds of the show. This is what has been placed at bus stops in Denver.
Oh. Colorado.
So, and these are bolted. These aren't taped. These are bolted to the posts.
Yeah.
This is how
activities. Yep.
This is how desperate they are. And
you'll notice live and well in Trumpville.
And you see, he's got, this is not the standard border crossing. If you're in California, you've seen the border crossing things as on your way to San Diego before they put the big fences in between. But look at this. You've got a man carrying a child, implying that the child is being trafficked. You've got a guy running with a knife, and you've got a guy stealing a woman's purse and running away.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to tie it to Kamala Harris. It's disgusting and it's desperate and it's going to fail. But with that, I will say, Dr. Tabor, do you have any closing words?
Just thank you very much, Tom, for bringing the truth to the people and keeping the podcast alive. Steel sharpens steel.
So I will say this, we close the show the same way every week. I'm Tom Cunningham. Liz.
I'm Dr. Elizabeth Ashley Walker.
And I'm Daniel Tate.
And this is Steel Sharpens Steel. Let's see you next week, everybody. We'll have more to talk about. And heavenly birthday to Michael Jackson. Anthony asked for a shout out to Michael Jackson. I'll give you a shout out to Michael Jackson. And I will just say that seeing his face pop up on my timeline and thinking about all the good music that he gave with us, especially from albums like Off the Wall and Thriller, where he still was Michael Jackson in my heart. We lost a great talent at the age of 50. I never imagined that I would not be in a world with Michael Jackson this soon. And so heavenly birthday to you, Michael. You're an amazing talent. And we will see you next week on Steel Sharp Steel. Thank you, everybody.